Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For the final time of this LP, I am Marcus Aurelius, and this is Byzantine Pythium. Wow, this was the longest and at the same time the most harrowing, nail-biting LP I have produced to date. It was a lot of work, but it was also a ton of fun. Looking back on it, honestly, I think that had I not had the experience that I had losing in the Shinuyama campaign, I wouldn't have won this one. I think a lot of the lessons that I had learned in that campaign translated into actions that I took in this campaign that allowed me to eventually claim victory. I have never claimed to be a great player, to be an expert player, but I do feel like I've become a better player, and I think that I attempt to, at least, convey what I learn and the strategies that I adopt and whether they work or not in what I say to you, the viewers, while I'm playing the game. By all means, leave feedback with this video to let me know if that's working, if you do feel like I'm imparting some kind of strategic wisdom or growth, I should say, not wisdom because I'm no guru who knows everything, but as I learn lessons, hopefully I share them with you, and if that's what I'm hoping for, and if that's the case, please let me know. If that's not the case, let me know how I can improve, because I would like to be more than just commentary and entertainment. You know, I'd like to actually provide a service in the sense that the people who watch my LPs hopefully will get better at the game as a result. So let me know how I'm doing on that front. First off, I would like to once again say a big thank you to Burnsaber. What a guy. I mean, he put this mod together, first of all, which would have been enough, let me just say. But then he gets involved in the community, he comments on the videos, he plays an active role. When we suggested some possible changes to the commander roster, he made them. Just amazing. From start to finish, Burnsaber has been a part of this, and it finally culminated with him co-commentating with me on episode 35, and it was 35, right? Pretty sure it was 35. And so just thank you, Burnsaber. You are the best, and I wish you the best in Finland, should it ever thaw out. You know, have a good one. Also, Burnsaber has just recently released a new patch, the final patch for this nation. He is making a new nation that is going to share many similarities with this one, but as far as this one goes, as far as Middle-Age Byzantine Pythium goes, he's released the final patch, and it is as playable as it ever was. So I highly recommend, if you want an enjoyable experience with what I consider to be a pretty well-balanced nation, go pick this one up. Not just well-balanced, but also complex. It offers multiple avenues, the one I took being just one of them. You'll note that I never used any pyrotes in battle. I very rarely used cavalry, and certainly probably didn't use them correctly. I had large communions, but they were basically for holy rituals, and I didn't really get into all the different magical ways they could be used. If you end up playing a longer game on a larger map, you're going to get into all kinds of battlefield affecting spells that will really make a huge difference. So I highly recommend next time you fire up the old Dominions 4 that you give this mod a try. I think it's worth multiple plays because it's that good. One last thing I want to say about Burnsaber is the guy is just an honorable, fair guy. Like, one thing he said to me after the recording was turned off and we were, you know, saying goodbye, he said, because I said, wow, you have some new mods coming out. That's awesome. You know, why don't you give me a call when they're ready to go? And he was like, you know what? Don't showcase my mods just because you know me. Don't give me special treatment over anyone else. If you see the mods, if you just find them while looking through the forums and you like them, great. But I'm not gonna put myself to the front of the list. And I thought that was just really cool of him. He's just a really down-to-earth, great guy. So Burnsaber, once again, thank you so much. But Burnsaber isn't the only one I want to thank. I, of course, want to thank all of you who've been watching these LPs. I love all of you, new and old, but I especially want to give a shout out to those of you who've been with me now for a few LPs. You know who you are. Hell, everybody knows who you are because you're in all of my games. But definitely those of you who get involved, those of you who get in character, that is fantastic, and thank you so much for doing that. But any of you who comment on a regular basis and contribute, whether that be through interactive fiction or through strategy advice or through telling me what a crap player I am, you're all fantastic. So thank you so much. I would like to apologize to those of you who are on the list to be named, but the game didn't progress to a point where I could create a character with your name. Sometimes that happens. There just wasn't enough commanders to go around, but as a result of this, I'm going back to the drawing board and I'm coming up with new naming rules so that in the future I can be assured that everybody will have a place. And I'm changing the naming rules anyways because there was problems with, you know, people wondering where they were on the list and people requesting certain things. So in my next LP, whenever that comes, I will announce how the naming is going to work. But hopefully it'll be much more simple, it'll be much more random, and it'll allow everybody to have a place. So I think that is a good way to go. And it'll also prevent me from playing favorites, because even though I try very hard to be fair and neutral, it's just human nature that if somebody comments a lot and they're always around and they're always positive, that I'm going to want them to be a big hero in the game. And that's not right. It's not right and it's not fair. And so, yeah, this new methodology that I'm working on will allow that not to happen. And everybody, whether it's the first Marcus Aurelius LP video you've ever seen, or if you've been with me through the beginning, will have an equal chance to be a great mighty thug or a dinky little commander. So that's that. What I will say, though, is for those of you who were on the list, and I'll post it. In the bottom of this episode, I will post a thank you list of all those whose names I did use, but also those of you who contributed but whose names were not used. When I do my next LP, the rule is going to be anyone who asks for a name who is on the list of this LP who didn't get a name will take priority. So that doesn't mean everybody, that just means those who ask. So you have to stick with me. So for example, if you were the first one on this list here that didn't make it into this game, and you're still around when I start my new LP, and you say on the first video, hey, I want to be in this one, you will take precedence over those who do not. So that's how I'm going to make it fair for those of you who are skipped in this episode. And I'm sure there won't be that many, actually, because, you know, people do things. They change their habits, they look at new channels, and they might not be around. So, but for those of you who are, I want there to be some kind of recompense for being skipped. Now let's talk about what I learned in this LP. Like, what did I gain from it? Well, I've noticed that I have developed kind of a style of playing. I start off trying to recruit large armies, and I generally do better with nations that have good armies as opposed to those who have weak armies. And then I finally transition into thug production, and I win most of my battles and most of my strategic victories through the usage of thugs. You saw this with the Shura Ghost Generals in Shinuyama. You saw this, the problem with Shinuyama, of course, was that their regular troops were terrible, so I could never get my beginning game off the ground. But you saw this with the vampire counts and especially the demon lords in Ulm. And you saw it in this game with the Varangians and Vestals to start out, and then I transitioned into the Angels. So that is definitely the Marcus Aurelius style, and I'm going to work hard to differentiate that because obviously I can't play everything the same. I have to branch out and learn new things. However, I will say that in this LP, I definitely developed a taste for communions. Prior to this, I had never really messed with communions ever. It was just too complex, and I just didn't want anything to do with it. But this nation was built for it. Obviously, it has the communicants built right in. The Emperor automatically starts the battle with the communion master spell on. So I was kind of forced to utilize it, especially because some of the new spells that Burnsaber created required high levels of priest that you would never get unless through a communion. And so I feel very comfortable with communions now. I think they're awesome. I really didn't even explore them to their fullest. I mostly use them for high-level holy spells, but honestly, you can cast any battlefield spell with a communion with just a basic mage, as long as you have enough communion slaves. So I really enjoyed the opportunity to learn about that. Vine shields. What can I say about vine shields? They are my favorite item in this game. I just seeing all those skeletons who were completely unfazed by my Angel's Awe, the magic weapons that didn't care about their invulnerability, but getting caught up in that vine shield, that is just, like, sometimes like 10 of them in one round. It was just amazing. And so yeah, vine shields. You can never have too many of those. But I was only able to produce all of the vine shields that I did because of my great allies. And that is the one thing I think that defines this campaign, is that right next to my capital, I had, where are you guys? I had my good friends, the lizards, and my good friends, the gnomes. Right next to my capital, both counts, and they formed a huge part of my armies. I mean, where would I be without the ability to ethereal and protect my Vestals and Varangians? I mean, that kept them fighting for much longer. And then finally, when I started bringing out my gnomes, we had destruction, we had wooden warriors, we had different spells that allowed my communion slaves to have regeneration and reinvigoration. Now remember, none of my recruitable troops, or mages that is, had earth or nature. I mean, some of them had 1 earth, I think was the max, and that's not really enough. And for a nation that's built on communions, having a communionable nature mage right out the gate was fantastic. And this LP would have been very, very different, and quite possibly wouldn't have been a success without the addition of my lizard and gnome auxiliaries. So that really shaped the campaign, and it provided the diversity that I needed to get things done. I mean, I would have no vine shields, I would have no personal regeneration, I would have no reinvigoration for my mages, I would have no wooden warriors or protection for my human troops. All of that was as a result of my auxiliaries. Now, granted, my Pretender had a ton of nature, and once Dakiasune came out, which, by the way, was halfway through the game, it was like almost at the beginning of year 4, and this game lasted till year 8, I could have started then forging nature boosters, maybe empowering somebody into nature, and then starting a chain reaction, but it would have taken a long time to set up, and having just the shaman and the gnomes ready to go certainly played a huge role in how this all worked out. What would I do differently next time? Well, I'm the kind of person who likes different things, so I probably won't be playing this nation again for a very long time. However, if I were to play it again tomorrow, I think what I would do, first of all, is I would reduce the bless that I had for my Vestals. It was decent, don't get me wrong, but I think I could have done with some better scales. More money, preferably, but also more production. So I think what I would have done, and I mentioned this a little bit in the Burnsaber interview, is I would have reduced the astral portion of my Pretender's Bless. My troops had plenty of astral. I never cast any high-level astral spells. I never forged any high-level astral items. All I needed was enough astral, basically, to keep my Pretender from being mind-hunted. But that would probably be my choice. And then I would have put those points into raising my production and income scales. Maybe a little bit of growth. I don't know. What was my... I ended up with 2 growth, so I had 2 growth, 2 heat, 1... So yeah, 3 income already. Damn. That might be from a throne. I think I only had 2. Yeah, that might be from my Throne of the Sun. But so yeah, I would have gone with better scales so I could recruit more troops, because as you saw at the beginning, my big problem was just money. I never had enough money for anything, and I could only, in some cases, have enough resources to produce my cheapest little troops, the Volites, who, by the way, accounted themselves quite well, and they never made me embarrassed. They were brave, they were strong, and especially with fanaticism, keeping their morale up, they were a hardy little front line of troops that did what they needed to do. What else did I learn? I learned beware of Ashdod. Ashdod is out of control. Giants, they conceivably can produce just infinite numbers of them. They have apparently enough money to build castles everywhere. they're just completely insane. Magic weapons, you know, thugs right out the box. If this were a multiplayer game, I would have been crushed. Would have been crushed right at the beginning. Ashdod, it's just poof, out of control. Ermor. You know, it could have been just this game. It could have been that they were a little bit passive. It could have been that they're AI. But I just don't see what the horror is. If anything, Ashdod and Scaleria were far more detrimental to me, and Oceania far more annoying than Ermor. Every battle we fought against them, we won. You know, it was just enough priests, we were able to push them back. I don't know what the hype is. I understand their Dominion kills people, and it did in a lot of provinces, and some it didn't. And their Dominion never really got very high compared to the rest of us, but, you know, I could see how being aquatic, or amphibious, I should say, and having that killing Dominion could be real trouble if I made the AI more aggressive and a little more strong, gave them a bigger bonus. But in this game, I just don't feel like Ermor ever really was a threat to me in the same way that Ashdod, Scaleria, or Oceania was. And partially that could be because Marignan acted as kind of a buffer for them, and Marignan was worthless. I mean, that was the only role that they played. They acted as a buffer to keep the enemy troops off me. They spread my dominion, but in the end, they were reduced to one castle and one castle under siege. That's all they had. So the game was won just about the time that Marignan was about to get kicked out. And I think that's really all I have to say. I learned quite a bit. This is a fantastic mod. I recommend you give it a try. Definitely check out this nation. Definitely beware Ashdod. And everyone, just thank you so much for following me on this journey. Some of you for this LP, some of you for multiple LPs. Always communicate with me. Send me emails. Comment on the videos. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you don't. Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate it so much. Have a good one.